Can we show the Detroit Pistons some love right now? The Pistons have been one of the most fun teams to watch this season. I love the story that is happening out Midwest right now. I love everything that they're doing. They got the great coach, they have the superstar in Cade Cunningham, and I think they got the perfect role players to really build something special. Now there are only 10 games left in the NBA season, but Detroit has already clinched their spot in the playoffs. Really now the East is just a fight over the seeding. Right now, if the playoffs were to start today, I think they'll be facing the Knicks, and I'm not that high on the team. I think the Knicks are just falling apart. And at this time of the season, Thibodeau's teams always fall apart. I don't know what it is about him and running players into the ground. I don't get it. Why do you keep doing it? If it never works, why do you keep doing the same thing? It doesn't make sense. It's crazy. But I trust Detroit more in the playoffs than I do New York simply because of the way they set their team up, how they fought for wins all season. Like, I'm one of those people that I love to watch Detroit play. Honestly, I'll be honest. I love to watch them play. I love their play style, their grittiness, the toughness. They're one of those teams that kind of match their city, right? Like Memphis does. It's just a toughness and a grit that they play with that makes them really a lot better. And they got JB Bickerstaff. We got to give him a lot of credit. Last year, this team won 14 games. Just earlier today, I watched them beat the New Orleans Pelicans at home, and they've now won 40 games this season. That is a impressive turnaround. Like, that's absurd. To go from winning 14 games, 14, to turning around and winning all of these games and being not at the bottom. It's not like they're fighting for a playing spot. Like, they're easily going to be, best case scenario, they could be like the 3 seed. That sounds crazy, but they're right there in the mix. And we got to give a lot of credit to JB Bickerstaff. A couple weeks ago, the reporters were mad at him because he went off on officials. He's like leading the league in text right now for coaches. And I think that's a good sign for coaches sometimes because he's never doing it from a malicious standpoint. It's always him trying to protect his guys. I think that's what you have to do as a coach if you want your guys to play hard for you. You got to know as a player that your coach got your back. And he's constantly showing his guys that kind of love and support. And I think JB deserves a lot of credit because we saw him do a lot with Cleveland the last couple years. Now he's shipped right over a couple miles away to Detroit, and he's replicating the same thing. So at this point, we know that it's him. He's the great coach. And I don't think that we give coaches enough credit in the NBA when they do good, but when they do bad, we love to, talk about them and rag on them and get them fired. Like, I don't know what it is with that. But with this guy, it's very clear that he's going in the right direction with this team once again. He always brings in a winning record. He's getting his guys to play hard. And I think he does a good job with his rotations. Like, even after they lost some players injury earlier, I think that was Ivy who had a gruesome injury earlier in the year, bad fall, whatever. Like, he's been able to make adjustments. And I think if he gets a couple more of the right pieces, he can be the coach to lead this team to the promised land for real. I couldn't talk about the Pistons without talking about Cade Cunningham. I appreciate Cade Cunningham for being one of those superstars that like reminds me of the old school stars. Like, I know Kobe had a few negative things to say about the Lakers at one point or another. Yeah, but for the most part, he was the guy that was like, I'm sticking with this. This is home for me. There was a couple really rough years, but he stuck around. After everything that happened last year, only winning 14 games, Cade Cunningham never had anything bad to say. Nothing. And that's just super impressive to me today because a lot of players don't have that type of energy where it's like, I'm loving this city, whether we win or lose, I'm riding with y'all, ride or die. Like, to see a player that has that ride or die attitude about their team now, it's so rare that, like, you got to appreciate it more, you know? Plus, he's good. Like, a lot of number one picks we see, they come out and they're good and they're decent, they're okay. Cade has like that MVP riser now. The last couple years he's gotten better. The injuries have kind of gone away. But this season, I think he should be at least fifth in the MVP conversation. Like, he should be right there in the mix. I know he won't win. I know. I'm not saying he should. I'm not saying that. But he should be in the conversation because the way he's carrying Detroit in some of these games, like, it's impressive. And it's not just through scoring. He really developed his game to where he's now passing the ball more. He's feeding guys. He's a better playmaker. And no, not all of it shows up on the stat sheet where he has a bunch of assists, but some games, because of his gravity, he's gotten smarter in terms of how to use that. He can help other guys get open shots. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's a skill some players develop over time. And that's really the difference between the guys that are just good at scoring And then the guys that are good at scoring, they're also playmakers. I've seen the same improvement with Donovan Mitchell, where they now know how to set up their teammates to kind of get fed off of their own gravity, right? And not always through an assist like we do a pick and roll or something, but sometimes it's how they cut off a backdoor screen or how they flare to the corner. Like it's small little things that I see K do. And I'm like, wow, that's impressive. Like, and again, it doesn't show up on the stat sheet. It's one of those things you got to be watching the game to see. And then you recognize, like, wow, that was a really smart play. He don't get no credit for the stat, but it's a smart play. So we got to put Cade in that MVP discussion, and I'm hoping he can continue to rise next season. Now I have Detroit as my like dark horse to come out of the East. Like I know it sounds crazy, but hear me out. Hear me out. They're one of those teams who I think on the nights where they're rolling and they're cooking, like especially since they added like Dennis Schroeder, they can beat a lot of teams. They can go in the gym and run a lot of teams out the gym, and it wouldn't surprise me. And plus, when you look at the East, a lot of these teams are young and unproven. That's just the truth. Like the Boston Celtics are the only team over there that are like proven where teams are like scared, right? With Milwaukee, most teams aren't scared of them. I think the Bucks. I know they have a losing record against the winning teams right now. The Knicks, we see how bad they play when they play against any other top tier teams. Indiana, I mean, come on. Pascal Siakam is probably he can lead you to a couple wins, but am I looking to him to dominate a series? Probably not. A lot of those teams you can beat, right? So I think if the series did get down to a game 7 with them in Boston or Cleveland, it's like there's a possibility Detroit could come out on top. I don't count them out completely. Like I don't think that they're that bad to where they're getting dominated the entire series. I just don't see it. One of the reasons is because of their defense. Again, this is where I give JB Bickerstaff credit. His strategy on defense is solid. The way the guys play hard, they play really gritty. They're moving around a lot. And if they do switch, they always communicate very well. Like the strategy that the coaches put into working with this team specifically, it's really high level, and that it shows. They're ranked top 10 in defense. In NBA at this point of the season, you don't get ranked top 10 in defense by accident. Like that means you put in some real work and you're shutting some teams down. Another sign of quality defense that nobody talks about is rebounding. How well are you rebounding? Because if you're rebounding well, that means that teams aren't getting a lot of second chance shots. Teams probably aren't able to run out in transition on you, right? Like you essentially slow the game down for them and speed it up for yourself, right? So that's what Detroit has been able to do. They are top 5, top 6 in rebounding. It's incredible. Like when you watch this team play, you're like, man, they're just a couple pieces away from being really scary. That's where I think Detroit is going right now. So to finish off the season, they got a couple games against teams that are ahead of them in the standings, so they got a chance to rise. They still got to play Cleveland once, the Knicks once, and the Bucks twice. So that's 4 really important games that can help them really shoot up those standings. So I'm expecting Detroit to kind of kick it into higher gear. Like earlier today, it's literally Sunday, so they just beat the Pelicans at home, and Cade Cunningham didn't even play; he was resting. And by the way, I'm not mad if a player rests at this point of the season after they've kind of figured out their playoff spot and they know they got a spot in the playoffs and the team is kind of set. I'm not mad at a guy like Cade Cunningham taking one game off here and there. To me, that's not even resting. It's more so preparing for the playoffs. That's different from you taking a game off in November when the season just started or Christmas Day game and you don't play. I hate that kind of resting. But taking a game off on an early Sunday game against the Pelicans who are at the bottom of the opposite conference, not a big deal. But when they play against Cleveland, New York, Milwaukee, I'm pretty sure Cade is going to show up. So this is the testing point for them to really solidify their spot. If they can climb up to get to that 3rd seed, that will really push me over the edge with my Detroit take. Like I still think Cleveland is a favorite, but I kind of want to see Detroit in the finals, honestly. I kind of want to because they're so good, at least the conference finals, because they're such a quality team. They're fun to watch, man. I love everything about Detroit right now. So let me know if I'm tripping. Let me know if you disagree. And let me know in the comments about what you think Detroit will look like in the postseason.